Republic Commando by Kevin Wallace, Adlai Bohn, William Rahl, and Jamie Branning.
Star Wars Republican Commando, released in 2005 by LucasArts, this tactical first-person shooter flipped the Star Wars formula on its head. Instead of being a Jedi with lightsaber, your RC-1138, call sign boss, leader of Delta Squad, an elite unit of clone commandos. The game emphasizes squad tactics and military strategy, showing the Clone Wars from the soldier's perspective rather than the heroes we usually follow. The game was developed internally by LucasArts, led by creative director Tim Longo and lead programmer Brett Duval. Inspired by Rainbow Six's tactical tension, they wanted to create an authentic war shooter within Star Wars. Built on Unreal Engine 2, it features innovative squad mechanics and gritty military score. Despite launching with little fanfare in a year dominated by Revenge of the Sith marketing, it became a cult classic and is now considered one of the best Star Wars games ever made.
To look at where this series is culturally in context, it is important to remember what kind of game that it was, being the fact that it is a Star Wars game. It was made after Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones in 2002, and before Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith in 2005. At its heart, it's a tie-in game. The droid attack on the Wookiees is what this game is about, towards its connection to the other films. It is a minor plot point in Episode 3, but is now the major one of the game. Out of the 3 missions, the latter 2 focus mainly on this element. There are many different influences that the game had pulled into different elements of its structure. For example, the music had influence from the movies Alien, Panic Room, The Thing, and Planet of the Apes. It also pulled on a growing trend of games where you played as special forces of soldiers and fight impossible battles, seen in contemporary titles like Resident Evil 4, Splinter Cell, and Chaos Theory. For the coding, they were inspired by Half-Life 2, Halo Combat Evolved, so the AI felt intelligent but able to be outsmarted. The legacy of Republic Commandos is split into 2 parts, being before and after the takeover by Disney. During this time, they created 7 different books, with 2 being graphic novels and 5 being traditional novels. Their legacy in the new Disney canon, however, permanently seen through the cameos in Star Wars, The Clone Wars, and Bad Batch, where they serve as an inspiration for the story, along with having episodes dedicated to them.
In the design of Republic Commando, there is a very present element of gameplay features that all help contribute to a larger whole of what makes this game great. See with the weapons themselves. The main Republic arsenal is quite simple, but effective. They work 3 weapons into one design, where the blaster rifle is modifiable into a sniper and grenade launcher. This allows a flexibility that is intentionally limiting to the essentials of what is needed per mission. However, with only those 3 weapons, the gameplay would get dull. To switch this up, the game allows you to take 1 secondary weapon, and with this slot, you're able to pick up the enemy's weapons. Here, they have far more interesting mechanics, like with the laser beam with the Geonosian beam to the right, the trencher shotgun beneath it, and to the left, the delayed explosive weapon of the concussive rifle. These weapons need to be fired, of course, and enemies have enough diversity to make it work. Each one has unique mechanics, with the common droids being fodder that can hardly damage you, while they stand in the way of the much more dangerous droids. The Geonosians, the bug-like enemies, fly around above you, jumping down to get hits before changing positions. Altogether, they work brilliantly to be their own individual enemies. To make this all work, you are able to issue squad commands and change their positions to help fight against the enemies and their own tactics. Sometimes you'll need a sniper to issue cover fire, so you order someone to take that position. Sometimes you'll need someone to destroy a blockade or a door, and you need to protect them while they operate. All these features work together to make Republic Commando a full gameplay experience.
Republic Commando has a very distinct visual direction. Nowhere is this more clear in the side-by-side of how the game's presentation compares to the established style of the original trilogy. In those films, it was a theater, sci-fi fantasy story of good versus evil, and in Republic Commando, it is a gritty story of soldiers against impossible odds. This feeling is carried over into the concept art, which pulls on this concept in all of its art. See this mirrored tone, where much of the fantasy element is traded for this feeling of war. The marketing art capitalized on this more, where they went for another avenue to explore the same feeling, horror. The trailers all had this element of being stalked and attention of the game to an extent itself may have not exactly had, but it uses it brilliantly to show the same feeling the game has.
When the original Star Wars film was released in 1977, the score was immediately recognized as a work of art created by John Williams, and the sound design created by Ben Burtt as an iconic staple of science fiction. The sound design from Republic Commando mixed various elements from the Star Wars prequel trilogy from 1999 to 2005. Jesse Harlan was brought on as the chief audio engineer, having previously worked on an assortment of other games for Lucasfilm. Republic Commando's theme incorporates a choir similar to that of Chancellor Palpatine's theme from the Star Wars prequel film trilogy, with Harlan describing it as the unified thoughts of the clone army and their willingness to fight and die for the Galactic Republic. Jana Vance is a Foley artist who had previously worked on an assortment of projects like the film Saving Private Ryan and various films created by Marvel Studios. Vance and her team, including secondary Foley artist Denny Thorpe, utilized a wide array of sound sources like cut pineapples, oyster shells, and cabbage to create the insect-like Geonosian hive, as well as the lizard-like Trandoshan pirates. The cast of the game consists of Tamara Morrison as Delta 38, Raphael Sparge as Delta 62, Andrew Chaikin as Delta 40, and Jonathan Cook as Delta 07. Various clones and additional voices were provided by Roger Jackson, pictured on the right. Originally during production, the game was set to have each clone with one voice in similar fashion to the lore of the films. However, playtesters found that the squad members were hard to follow and tell apart from each other, leading to the difficult but necessary decision to cast multiple people for the individual members of Delta Squad. The effects of the game's sound not only influenced the tone of the game itself, but also shaped future aspects of Star Wars canon as a whole. UK author Karen Travis had previously written a series of novels also titled Republic Commando, despite not having anything to do with the game. The theme song for the game would go on to inspire Travis into creating an entirely new language for the warrior race known as the Mandalorians, drawing inspiration from the choir within the song mentioned previously. On the contrary to its cult following after 1983, Star Wars in the 21st century was impossible to escape. The series had little to no cultural impact in the late 80s and all throughout the 90s, and it was only in 1999 when Lucasfilm began to double down on marketing. The tone of the game was one of the first pieces of Star Wars media to depart from the vision of creator George Lucas. Multiple connections have been made to first-person shooter games of the same era, such as Halo, Combat Evolved, and the original Call of Duty. A sequel was also planned, although a developer has stated that the plans were unfortunately scrapped during pre-production. However, a mobile-based spin-off game was released, allowing anyone with a mobile device to play as members of Delta Squad during the events of Order 66. Despite the game's flaws, it was received extremely positively and remains seen as a classic by both Star Wars fans and first-person shooter fans alike. The prequel era of Star Wars went on to be regarded as equally iconic, if not more, compared to the original trilogy in the 20th century.